So what made you want to talk about this topic?
So more isn't always better. This is definitely a fitness myth that I feel like is one that's never going to go away. And what I mean by this is more isn't better. It's the run yourself into the ground strategy, or the I need to burn more calories. I mean, it can take whatever sort of form you want, but it's one of those I feel like it's never going to go away, and it's one of those that, it's going to be a constant battle with just clients as a whole.
I mean, I think this is a concept even outside of fitness that people struggle with. I mean, we live in a very heavy, workhorse society where if you're not giving 100%, then you must be like a piece of crap or something. It's one of those things that I actually heard, I don't remember which Asian country did this, but they were having an idea of switching around their work week from being 5 days a week for 8 hours to 4 days a week at 10 hours to see what kind of difference in productivity they have. And basically by removing 1 day of work and making them work a little bit longer, they actually found that they were more productive because they would get a whole extra day off in between their actual work weeks. And this is, like, in my eyes, the epitome of what people should be doing. It's I don't want to say it's about balance either, because balance is bullshit. I mean, trying to find balance when you have 2 kids, a job, a house to take care of can be kind of difficult sometimes. So for me personally, it's more about working smarter, not harder. You know what I mean?
Sure. Exactly. And that's the biggest thing, that it's like, you think that you need to spend hours upon hours in the gym, when in reality, if you just went in and you did things just smarter, meaning, doing exercises that are going to give you the biggest bang for your buck, you're going to get more out of that as a whole. But most people don't see it as a long-term thing. They see it as a short-term thing. And I think that maybe that's where some of the disconnect is as well, that it's that, instantaneous, sort of result that you're looking for. But in reality, it's one of those that fitness, and I think we've said this on every single one of these that we've done, is a lifelong journey. And it's never going to end. And I say what you do today is going to have very little impact probably on what you are doing in 10 years from now.
I honestly think that, and I'm not putting the blame on any one particular group of people for this issue in society, but I won't lie. I think that doctors and medicine play a really large role in that, because they've developed things like cortisone shots, where it basically takes your pain away that day. And then you sit there and go like, okay, well, our systems, we can get people out of pain, but guess what? It's going to take work and it's going to take time, and you have to put that effort in. But the best part is you don't have to take those injections and all that stuff. And I find that as our business continues to grow, that we struggle trying to convince people that going slower is actually going to be better for them, especially if they are in an injured state.
No, exactly. And then it is. And it comes back to that sort of instantaneous result. At the end of the day, that we go back 150 years ago, these things didn't exist. And it's, one of those that it was almost like you were forced to slow down. That's probably what retirement and why it was invented, it was a force to slow you down. And it's one of those that, people now are working probably later than ever. I don't have any, stats to back that up or anything, but it's one of those that, they've even pushed the retirement age back. It went from 60 to 65. Now it's 67. And it's like, granted, it's not a bad thing. We are living longer, but it's one of those things that we're not taking care of ourselves now, is really what it is.
Well, and, I find that it's like the other, it's both directions, right? Like, because you basically are telling someone like, hey, you should slow down. Well, if someone's already not moving, right, that can have some adverse side effects too.
Yeah.
So like, I think that that's what ends up happening, right? Is that like, people hear these things and just take it way too literally. I've seen so many supplement companies for fat burners and pre-workouts that make the most ridiculous claims to what they can do to your body, but people think like, if I start taking this right now, I'm gonna look jacked in 3 months. And it's like, if anybody who's been working out for longer than a year knows, supplements contribute about less than 1% of your total results. But what are they doing? They're marketing themselves as, we can make things happen faster if you take XYZ supplement, when in reality, like, it's just a process that takes time. And if you don't understand that from the beginning, every time you hit a roadblock or a plateau, you're gonna not only get frustrated with yourself, but also with exercise, and get to that point where you almost start demonizing exercise because it's giving you adverse side effects.
Yeah, and that's, sort of going back to, what I originally said with the more is better, and say people will not do exercises because it hurts my back or my knees hurt from it. I shouldn't do that exercise. And that's exactly what it is. You're now demonizing that exercise. And it's like, okay, let's take it one step back. That the exercise isn't what caused you the issues in the first place. There was something else there, whether or not you were squatting with improper form or, and I'm using squatting as an example because that's a really big one that, squatting hurts my knees or deadlifting hurts my back. And it's like, okay, well, if you, did those things with crap form, of course you're going to get hurt. And that's the reality of the situation is that, it goes back to the, I want to get as much done as quickly as I can, and I don't care about my form. It suffers. What happens? Injury. Squats were the issue. Deadlifts were the issue. When in reality, it's you're just being an idiot.
Well, honestly, I mean, I don't want to blame CrossFit, but CrossFit is like the epitome of more. I mean, let me give you an example, right? CrossFit uses an exercise called box jumps, which is known for being one of the best power-based movements that you can do in the gym. The problem is that when you take a movement like box jumps that's specifically designed to build anaerobic capacity and power, and you turn it into an endurance exercise, it always ends poorly. And this is like super popular in CrossFit. They would call it the conditioning WOD or whatever, where they would have clients do 100 box jumps. Well, if you know anything about the power or the anaerobic threshold, you know that the repetition count is typically between 1 and 5. So why they're taking an anaerobic exercise and turning it into an endurance exercise is honestly beyond me, because typically when we see something like that happen at our gym, one thing happens and one thing happens only. When they get tired, they eat shit.
That is 100% true. And, you're right. It's one of those that, I don't necessarily want to, blame CrossFit for these things, but, it's one of those that we have to remember the roots of CrossFit in that it's a sport. And when it comes to sports, let's be real and say athletes are getting paid to get injured is really what it is. It's not, an if, it's a when, is really what it comes down to. And that's the other issue that we sort of see with, the more isn't better is that, you'll look at an athlete and go, wow, I say, I want to look like that. And they'll have a program, look like me in 3 months or whatever. And then someone tries to do it. You're never going to look like an athlete. And I say you should never really train like a true professional athlete because they're just genetic anomalies.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. There's a show that I watch. It's called The Bachelor, and basically I kind of follow some of the contestants after they leave the show just to kind of see what they do. And there was actually a Bachelor contestant after they were done being on the show who decided that they wanted to become a personal trainer. So I kind of inquired just out of plain curiosity to kind of see, okay, this famous Bachelor person claims that he can be a personal trainer. What do they have to offer? So we were basically asking them hey, what are your goals when we were talking to the Bachelor, and basically said what are you looking to do with fitness? And basically what he said was that his workouts help his body dysmorphia. Now, the reason that I bring that up is because it's one of those things where I get the intention behind it is good, right? Okay, if I work out, I feel better about myself. But that's not really what's happening. He is basically relying on exercise to remove an aspect of his life that makes him unhappy, which is the way that he looks. And I know you're probably thinking well, isn't that the point of exercise? Well, yes and no, because ultimately exercise and changing the way you look comes back more towards your diet. So the fact that he's using exercise to cure, in big air quotes, his body dysmorphia is literally going to lead him down the path of more is better. And the reality is that sure, he might be okay right now, but it'll definitely catch up to him in the next 10, 20, 30 years. I mean, he's a young guy. He's in his late 20s. If he were to keep doing what he's doing for the next 80 years, I can guarantee you he's going to end up in a place where he's not wanting to be.
And that's what most people don't think about, is right there is what is going to happen, 50, 60 years from now, and say with my body is really what it comes down to.
Or how about this? I know this is like a topic that we see really frequently. How about former athletes? Mm-hmm. This is a really good conversation topic because I see a lot of either collegiate athletes or high school athletes who, when they become into the professional world, they stop doing their sports. And what ends up happening is they gain a bunch of weight. Now, I know what you're thinking, like, what does that have to do with anything? Well, if someone had the mindset back when they were in high school or college of more, I'm competing and I'm doing all these sports and all these things, and then they remove that from their life, they start actually having adverse side effects. So it's one of those situations where you're like, okay, if that person were to get injured, what would happen to them? They would be set up for failure because they were someone who relied so heavily on being active to stay in shape that if they get injured even for 6 weeks, they might have some serious weight gain or serious muscle atrophy because they did way too much before and now they're doing nothing,
Yeah, and that's probably another topic for, a different day, that it's like, the situation of the more and the burning, calories to lose, weight or whatever. But yeah, you're setting yourself up for a big lose-lose situation there.